Dice Hayek lo siguiente.
Hayek says the following. Take note. He says that an order can come to understand, to comprehend,
A explicar,
to explain, to account for, if you will, orders that are simpler or less complex than itself.
que sí mismo. Pero lo que no puede llegar
But it can never explain nor account for itself,
o a dar cuenta de sí mismo,
nor can it explain or account for orders more complex than itself.
que sí mismo. Entonces, ¿cuál es la razón?
What reason does Hayek give for this idea? He says that each order is like a network or structure of elements and categories. We've all been children. Think of a Meccano set.
Todos hemos sido niños,
Do you remember building with a Meccano set? We built structures. Well, Hayek says that into a structure, a set of related elements and categories, we can integrate or include and also understand a simpler Meccano building.
no más sencillo. Es decir,
That is, a structure or order with fewer categories and less complex relationships between them than is true of the order we start with.
orden de partida.
However, what we cannot even conceive of is an order which, with its particular degree of complexity, includes and accounts for itself and its own complexity. Nor can we imagine an order which includes and accounts for orders more complex than itself.
Más elevado. Y vamos a aplicar esta idea hayekiana.
Let's apply this Hayekian idea to the pyramid.
Es que la
An
química
understanding of chemistry requires a science.
presupone para su comprensión una ciencia
Physics that focuses on simpler orders.
sencillos que es la física. Y la biología tiene
And biology relies on both chemistry and physics.
lo que dice Hayek es que lo que
Hayek says that it is inconceivable for physics, which lies at the narrow vertex and studies relatively less complex phenomena,
relativamente menos complejo
to account for and make clear the more complicated phenomena of biology.
fenómenos más
Instead, the reverse is true.
que sería al revés. La
Biology, which focuses on more complex phenomena, includes or incorporates
a los fenómenos
physical and chemical phenomena.
químicos. Si llegamos a la mente humana,
Now we come to the creative human mind, to the intelligence of human beings. As a phenomenon, I place the human mind very close to human action, as we have seen. Well, the human mind can account for and study physics.
física,
And indeed, every year a Nobel Prize in Physics is awarded, and physics is advancing. Chemistry is as well, though somewhat more awkwardly. Biology and medicine are moving forward too, but they face many more obstacles.
exacta como
Medicine is not such an exact science as chemistry, which lends itself to laboratory experiments involving reactions.
dos átomos de hidrógeno y uno
We know for sure that if two atoms of hydrogen bond with one atom of oxygen, the result is H2O, a molecule of water.
características
In medicine, we may know, for instance, that of every 1,000 tumours with certain characteristics, 80% resolve. But now we are dealing with a much more complex order.
fenómenos biológicos,
Still, we can, with our minds, account for biological phenomena.
fenómeno enormemente
And we can, with our minds, understand something about human action and society. Though with far greater difficulty, because these are immensely more complex phenomena. And we can develop a discipline, economic science, which we are studying together.
pero ya con muchas más dificultades.
This is a much more difficult undertaking, however. It is much harder to practice economic science than to study physics, chemistry or biology, despite appearances.
Pero lo que no puede hacer la mente humana
At any rate, the human mind cannot account for itself nor replicate itself.
reproducirse. Sí que la mente humana puede
The human mind can, for instance, under certain circumstances, induce nuclear fusion
inducir
or chemical reactions
o,
or perform a liver transplant.
o hacer un trasplante de
But the human mind cannot replicate itself.
autorreproducirse.
According to Hayek's hypothesis, an order cannot fully explain itself, nor account for itself, nor replicate itself. It is interesting to note the important implications of Hayek's idea. It would mean that the entire scientific program of artificial intelligence, that is, the attempt to replicate the mind of a human being, is doomed to failure. In other words, artificial intelligence is a pompous term. I suppose we could advance by inventing a very fast calculator or a computer that calculates at the speed of light, but those are really just dumb machines, if you will. They merely reproduce certain mechanical behaviors, depending on how the machines have been programmed. Perhaps we could place such a machine inside a robot and give an anthropomorphic impression that there is a human being there, but there really isn't one.
Lo que les quiero decir es que es un misterio.
What I'm trying to say is that it is a mystery how we create with our minds and why we create. And we are not able to create ourselves, to make creative human beings, according to the Hayek hypothesis. Furthermore, we are most certainly not able, with our minds, to account for orders of a higher degree of complexity than our own minds.
De acuerdo con Hayek,
in Hayek's view, our minds can be described as extraordinarily complex structures of related elements and conceptual categories. Our minds are sustained by 150 billion neurons, but that is the biological description. In reality, how these neurons function, how they receive information, how they create, I have given you some intuitions, but they are very timid. I offered a very rough explanation as follows. In a certain part of our brains, in certain neurons, there lies a particular memory or bit of information from the past, and in another part there lies another, and it turns out that by combining them, we may get the idea for a project. We may create something new, something no one had ever thought of before. I am putting forward a tentative, awkward explanation, but it is not possible for me to provide a clearer one, because my mind cannot explain nor account for itself. For we know an order cannot account for itself, nor for another order of an equal degree, let alone a higher or much higher degree of complexity.